Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, AmTrust Title, Ariel Property Advisors, Customers Bank, Capital One Bank, Meridian Capital Group. Additional funding has been provided by grants from AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Castamatidis Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Merengoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends. Artificial intelligence? Blockchain? $12.6 billion invested in prop tech? What is this? What world am I in? I'm in the world today of what's really happening in technology and in real estate. So with the help of my executive producer, Sandy, we've assembled this group of 3 people who truly understand what's happening in real estate technology and what the market is going to bring. My guest, as I said, is my executive producer returning to my show, Sandy Jackalel, who's the Chief Information Officer at Meridian Capital Group. From New Jersey, Colts Neck, New Jersey, we have the co-founder, managing director of Onyx Equities.
Yes.
I didn't want to screw it up.
You got it right.
Jonathan Schultz. And last but not least, traveling with his bag from Houston, Texas, over here, Justin Siegel, who is the president of Boxer Properties and the founder and CEO of Stemmons Enterprise.
That's right.
So, Mr. Jackalel has been involved. He's been banking in the business. He's been in the financing business. I'm not going to ask him. I'm going to ask the 2 other gentlemen, how did you get involved with technology? How did a guy who graduated NYU decide to go to Silicon Valley and get involved with tech?
I had been involved in the real estate business. My older brother had started a company, Boxer Property, while I was still in college. So I was kind of seeing that over the summers and so forth, and we were getting serious about being organized. I finished college, went to law school, and after law school decided to jump in, but it didn't seem like the right time to buy buildings. Instead, we bought a software company, and it was a kind of a company that had had some trouble. It was failing. We took it over, turned it around, kind of built up the product, sold it, and I found myself with nothing to do, and it was December of 1998. And I moved to Silicon Valley and started a company called startups.com, where I got to see kind of what early stage venture-backed startup companies were doing when it was time to try to get big very quickly. So I kind of had that experience, and that was the beginning of technology for me. And although I got back into real estate, I never left tech out of my mind.
Mr. Schultz?
Well, I've always been this gadget guy, growing up. I always wanted the newest, shiniest object in tech.
Rubik's Cubes?
I mean, I had a Palm Pilot. I think that's how old I am. So
he and I had an abacus.
Well, there you go. It evolved, right? So, but for me, like I always enjoyed it. It was fun.
But people know Onyx Expertise more as a real estate company, not as a tech company. But they don't know about that. The managing director also runs a blog. He speaks around the country. He invests in tech companies. What caused you to get involved with tech?
Well, I've always used it personally. One of my first companies was a brokerage company that I was involved in the early 90s. And if CoStar was not here, I would not have been able to start that company. All the large brokerage companies had research. I didn't have the money to, afford that. So the secret sauce used to be information, and CoStar democratized that. So I've always used technology to, be a little bit more or have more of an advantage than I could have on my own. So,
Mr. Executive Producer, in your old life at Silverstein, you were CIO also over there, but you were also involved in investments in real estate. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the world changing? What technical differences? Do you see people utilizing algorithms to make decisions on what to buy, who to lease to, and so on?
Well, there are two sides to it. One is from the investment side. It is all about the data. It's understanding patterns and trends that we never could see before, and I'll let Justin talk about that in a few minutes. It is understanding, because we all have wealths of data, and when you think about it, there are companies out there, not only CoStar, but the Reonomies and the public databases, where you can get your hands on information that you've never done before. And even when you think about running the building with the Internet of Things, everything is a device. We're capturing data from every time somebody walks through a turnstile, when you have somebody sitting in a seat. So with all of that, you can start to build smarter spaces, you can build better buildings, and with that, what you're doing is providing ultimately a better tenant-resident experience, because what they want is self-service. They want to do what they can do at home, pick up their phone and have simple entry into the building. We have one tenant where they wanted to be able to control the HVAC levels for each particular employee. So it's a combination of self-service, which is all driven by the data, so you can provide that best user experience.
Let's talk about AI and blockchain and some of the experiences we were talking about in the green room.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'll start with AI, because I think AI and blockchain are both technical.
For my viewers who don't understand, AI means artificial intelligence.
That's right. So we'll take artificial intelligence as an umbrella term, and within that have things like algorithms, which are something that a person comes up with. It's basically a set of rules that get executed. RPA, or robotic process automation, which is kind of a more complicated version of how things move through an organization. And then really the more sophisticated types of artificial intelligence, like machine learning, models that can train themselves and find things that we're not necessarily able to look for. So I tend to lump those things together as AI, but at least in my world, we've been focusing on algorithms for a long time. Now we're really climbing up the food chain and dealing directly with more sophisticated machine learning models, which are now accessible even to smaller companies.
We were talking before about these tech companies who are involved with office leasing and tenant leasing, residential leasing today. It's grown so much. How do you see that?
Well, listen, all these products are just use cases of inefficient ways, supposedly. This is one big experiment that we're all going through together as an industry. We've always been late to adopt, as far as all the other industries that are out there. So I think it's more about like what's useful, and does that product fit a use that can scale? And some are, and we have great examples of what I say is much traction of companies.
So I'm not sure if it was with the help of Sandy or someone else. I had the guy who with the radiator business, that people don't realize in the city of New York, you have all of these brownstones or the 6-story walk-ups, and they're losing so much energy because of the radiators being inefficient. So they came out with radiator.com, where they came in and they've changed the type of radiators, they've mechanized the system, and the enterprises are saving a lot of money for this situation.
There's systems tech, like for more efficiency for your building, whether it's BIM systems and other products, sensors that are now attaching to those items to make you more efficient, see the data. And then there's revenue generating tech, which is what I've been spending most of my time in. And in the residential world, I think AR, VR, on how you visualize now properties, which, has been very much, in the dark ages on, you have to go out and see the space, you have to go back and see it. It's not staged properly.
For residential rental properties, I agree with you. I think for luxury apartments or luxury properties, people want to see the physical property. They may want to see them initially on an AI approach, visualizing what they can. It's like the staging of a house. But I think there's a different level for different products.
I agree, but and I think the jury will see as time goes on. But when you're used to being born with a cell phone in your hand, and you went through a different generational progress as far as tech is concerned compared to the old
Sandy and I
generation.
remember the princess phone,
Yeah.
or the dial-up. Okay,
Which my daughter still has one.
And I think you want to see it, but I do believe the visualization is going to get so good.
But isn't
it
there
will
a
be as if-
situation? Every millennial thinks that they can come up with a new tech. Needless to say, I get a couple of requests, people calling me about different products, and some of them, they may sound right. And like we were talking in the green room, there are a lot of companies who went into the crowdfunding or other areas, and they thought they were correct, but they didn't have any skill set.
What we're seeing right now with this proliferation of companies focusing on very specific things is, we're winding up with almost too many products, too much software, and each one of them is very narrowly tailored. But if you look at what they're actually doing, they're exercising a set of skills that I think people might do well to develop internally. In other words, they're managing data effectively. They're drawing conclusions. They're presenting that in a way that creates actions. And if companies can become able to do those things themselves, then buying 20 different software products for 20 different needs kind of starts to feel like an integration nightmare.
Integration is one of the important things where these systems all have to talk to each other. Otherwise, it does, to your point, become a management nightmare. But the other side of it is you can actually take little incremental values. And think about residential. When you're doing the virtual reality tours and you're laying out your apartment with furniture that you're dropping in, there's a company out there that now, while you're doing that, you can actually go buy that furniture online, and it becomes a seamless process for the end user. So you're adding value with just that little incremental component of just being able to buy it right there in the moment.
Where do you see the greatest opportunities in tech?
I think the idea of being able to, and this cuts across every use case, every industry, is to be able to have data, use the data effectively, and then turn that into human action. In other words, it changes someone's behavior, and that could be in leasing or in operations or in maintenance or in marketing or whatever. But the products that do that, or the companies that develop those skills, that's going to be the difference between the haves and the have-nots.
I'll give you an example. Sandy's employer, I know them for ever since the day he was founded, okay, approximately 27 years ago. He's a very bright guy, but he didn't realize until recently, and that's why he hired you, of the data that he has and how to utilize it efficiently. How do you get that message across? Okay, as opposed to your brother, who's a couple of years older, how do you get that message across to the older generation of owners that we were talking about, especially since you spend most of your time in New Jersey? How do you get it to those owners who are really, they said, maybe I should get into this business. What am I missing? I'm losing out. How do you get that message across?
When something becomes better, cheaper, faster, and Moore's law kicks in, right? That's when people will look at it in a different way. And I just think you need champions within organizations that are going to, bring the technology, get the right people involved, that it's actually going to help. To me, it's all about, is it useful, and does it help you? Does it make your life easier? And in real estate, we're trying to figure out which one of those products, and you can't do it all at once either. So you have to have like a roadmap, which, Justin's company has been road mapping this process for years.
Let's specifically talk about the office leasing market. Let's talk about the small office leasing market and the large leasing market. If you go to a company and you say, I need 100,000 square feet, I mean, CBRE came out with John Powers when he was there before he went to Boston Properties, had this great group of people who came out with these great reports and they explained, and people utilized it. But those reports were used for the tenants who needed 100,000 square feet or more. Do we see tech for that, or do we see tech in the office leasing for the small size, the square foot?
I think that we've historically focused on small and medium-sized companies, and we have gone even smaller. We've launched a brand called WorkStyle, Boxer WorkStyle, and this is something we started maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Colliers did a report on Houston recently and named us as the largest provider of co-working space in Houston. But in order to do that, we have to have a very sophisticated marketing operation. We have to be able to deal with things like art and Wi-Fi and shared spaces. We have licenses now instead of leases, which creates a ripple effect through our ecosystem as we have to describe to lenders why we have a license.
Is co-working real estate prop tech?
To me, it's innovation.
When people hear about the
Innovation-
$12.6 billion,
Right.
okay, that includes WeWork. I think WeWork is an innovation, and I think the co-working companies are innovation, but they're not tech per se.
I think every industry has tech infiltrated within it, and it's what innovative practices are you using to incorporate it. I think tech's engrossed in all of our lives, from personal to business to, travel to everything that we do. So I think innovation is really the
I mean, when was the last
word.
time you saw airline tickets? The world has changed. Uber and Airbnb started at the same time. And I read this book that they met each other in Washington for the inauguration of Obama. And both of them did not have the capability of finding space. So one needed space and one couldn't get a cab because nobody would pick him up. So the innovation is over there on the situation. Utilizing Meridian as an example, 27 years of business, all the statistical information, every deal that they negotiated, they are now capturing, or they're trying to capture this, and utilizing it for themselves as opposed to selling it, as opposed to the CoStar that we were talking about. But CoStar was an innovator.
Early.
So who do you see as the next innovators? Who are the leaders in real estate prop tech?
I think there's verticals, right? It's not just about one thing anymore, right? Where it was accounting software, it was, information software. I think it's expanding to verticals. There's
Sandy and I remember
front-facing
when
tech.
we had to use a pencil to do a,
Well, like how you enter a
worksheet.
building, right? The old way of standing in that line. There's products out there now to make that a better experience. To how do you
It's like the
amenitize your buildings?
the clear model for TSA situation. The model that you can go with your eye recognition, so you don't have to go in with the other recognition over there. Since you seem to be involved with the Silicon Valley and everything else, where do you see the greatest talent base coming from today?
I think that's very interesting. We obviously have operations in Houston. We have operations in India. We're starting an office now in Mexico City. All of them having technical talent.
I'm surprised you don't have an office in Austin, which is really a big prop tech place.
But we have some space there, and it wouldn't be surprising. The nice thing is that we can be decentralized now. And I think that there's definitely a locus of talent in places like New York and Los Angeles and Silicon Valley, and that's hard to ignore, and it's very real. But I think because of the ability to move information effectively, we call it moving information without losing fidelity, we can operate much more effectively as teams in a distributed way than we used to be able to, and that's something that has also changed the world of our customers, our tenants. So we're kind of being impacted by technology in a positive way in the same way that our customers are, and we have to understand that they need something different than they used to need as well.
But here's a big question. How do we protect ourselves from the hacking and from the cybersecurity and all of those situations that we've been quiet right now? But the viruses and the other things, how do we protect all that?
Education, because every day there's something else coming at us, whether it's someone working at their workstation to your servers, trying to make something happen with your information. So I think education is very, very important. The actual user, and you would know this even more than me, knowing what to look out for is important, because one click can literally...
So here's the question, because both of you own real estate and operate real estate. Today, how much are you practicing of what you're preaching when you go out and look at a property to make a decision if you should buy it or not?
Preaching on what?
You're preaching on prop tech and technology. When you're buying the property, you're utilizing certain information in your analysis, financial analysis. You listen to the financial analysis, the question is, what do you finally do to pull the lever to make a decision to buy?
We definitely practice what we preach. And as we have a highly structured, data-driven decision-making culture in our company, and that exists in the acquisition side as well. So if you were to kind of look beneath the covers, you'd see a very structured decision-making process that uses information effectively. And it's very nice to be able to kind of do that throughout our entire organization, but definitely acquisitions is part of that.
We feel real estate is a local business. We have stayed in the markets that we know, both from data accumulation by making lots of mistakes and some successes, along with just knowing the tenants in the area. We still think that's paramount to real estate. So we've always basically stayed in a place that we could use data, but we know to operate real estate well, you got to be in that market. Now, can data help you expand out more than you could in the past?
I think there's
yes.
no question that the data can help you expand out.
But we still look at real estate as, a local business.
Years ago, I met an individual. His name was K.B. Weissman, and he was, as we would say, a world-renowned investor, very charitable human being. And I sat down with him, and I met him in Florida, and he was the king, let's say, of hard money lenders, higher price lenders. And I said, KB, how do you determine what you're going to lend? He says, I count the rooms. I make a decision on the number of rooms. His science was, I don't need this number. This is what it's going to be. Certain people still have their gut feeling.
Well, I still believe technology is a tool that can make you better, right? So it's just how are you going to use it, and how creative are you, which there's way more, I would say, progressive people using technology in ways that can maybe help them be more creative, and there's people that are not using it at the same level. So
I think you end up seeing two sides of it. One is efficiencies to run the building to reduce costs, and the other is to really attract the tenants through better amenities and better service, and technology will leverage both of those.
And innovation.
Yeah.
Right. And what about with what I was talking about, Skyline? Can the innovation and the technology and the algorithms in your own mind make a true decision if this building is the building you should buy versus some other building?
I mean, I personally think that we're at the very beginning of AI, like at its infancy, and depends on what algorithm you're building, right? What are you trying to achieve? So with smart contracts, smart leases, can you have an automated process to maybe not make certain mistakes or make things faster? Could we have where all of our contracts were uploaded to an AI, say, a lawyer, that basically knew what you said yes to and no to for every contract you did on each side, and meld them together and start at a different place?
If we go back in a time that Sandy and I will remember, and you may have also remember the RTC time.
I do.
If that information was available today, look what could have been done in the analysis of selling the bank loans and everything else. It could have been a higher information because they didn't have data collection.
Well, there wasn't a cloud.
There wasn't a cloud, there wasn't the information
Right.
over
And
there.
it was all manual.
I'd hate to go up against somebody who was using information if I was not.
Right.
It would be like riding a bicycle with only one speed against somebody who's got a 12 speed. And sure, they're both bicycles, you're both making investment decisions, but by being effective at using information, and by the way, it's not just acquisitions, it's who we hire, it's who we promote, it's how we set our prices, it's when we sell something, which product do we purchase. I mean, every decision, to the extent that we can use information, it doesn't make the decision for you, but it helps.
Right, and as I was talking a little bit before about the information that people believe, they hear about 23andMe and Ancestry.com, they don't realize that these basically are data collection companies who are taking the information that they have absorbed about the people and selling it to marketing companies, to manufacturers, to other people where they can sell products. And in essence, the businesses of the websites, of the Googles and the Bing and the Microsoft, they're in data collection and they're selling an advertising business. So I think in summation, there is no question that if I bring you back in 2019, 2020, the 12.6 billion will probably go to 20 billion in a very short period of time.
But technology is also creating different asset classes to morph into different things, right? Co-working for office is pushing office building owners to treat office buildings more like hotels that just can't sleep there than office buildings. You have to offer way more than you ever did. In retail, I'm involved in a concept that now is a permanent pop-up store in a mall, 20 different emerging brands. Every 4 months, we switch them out and we're creating an experience. There's more creativity because of technology pushing our boundaries, our limits, our asset classes into different directions, but it's also, we have different generations that are expecting different things, and it's very important to, that's your customer. So I think you have to be more of a consumer-minded person today in real estate than you used to in the past.
I'd like to thank my executive producer, Sandy.
My pleasure.
Bringing Jonathan and Justin, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.